are talking about Butchers, which is directed and co-written by Adrian Langley. Now, you know how sometimes you'll say, this movie is kind of a cross between that movie and this movie? Well, let me tell you, Butchers is an easier film to describe because it's literally exactly the same as the movie Wrong Turn. Not Wrong Turn meets something else, just Wrong Turn. It is practically the same film. But that doesn't mean to say it's not any good. In case you have not heard of Wrong Turn for some reason, I shall explain. Now, this movie, Butchers, and pretty much Wrong Turn as well, it focuses on this kind of out-of-the-way, rural, redneck-style kind of family that ultimately tries to capture passers-by and torture them, rape them, eat them, all sorts of nasty stuff. And in this movie, Butchers, it follows this 4 kind of young teenagers. It's set in the late 90s, I guess, to try and avoid this cell phone kind of situation. And we've got 2 girls, 2 guys, and they run afoul of this kind of family of killers, ultimately. And it is their struggle to survive, you know, out in the kind of the wilderness without any help, and you know how many kind of people are involved, etc. Lots of kind of gore, lots of kind of brutal violence. You get the picture. Okay, it is practically the same movie as Wrong Turn. The same setup, the same kind of basic kind of character type, the same kind of crazy kind of inbred family. It's all there. But what worked in this movie, despite the fact that this is completely unoriginal, it's still actually quite a well-made film, I have to say. I think the kind of the quality of the filmmaking, the kind of like on a kind of technical side here, is pretty good. I think it's actually fairly well filmed, well edited. I think the sound design is fantastic in this movie. We get lots of kind of like chopping through kind of flesh sounds and things like that. And I think that's all kind of pretty damn good. I think the kind of the gore here is to a good standard. I mean, it's not kind of gory that you haven't kind of seen before, but there's plenty of kind of severed limbs, things like that. In actual fact, I mean, it's reasonably gory, but it's not overly gory. But there is kind of like, you know, lots of dismembered body parts and things like this, but you don't quite see, you know, people's faces getting crushed and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, there's a reasonable amount of gore here. But the violence is quite brutal, and obviously what you've also got here is kind of like the implied rape and things like that as well, cannibalism. So these guys are pretty despicable, and they're kind of like their grungy, disgusting looking lair is probably as gross as you can probably depict here. The movie actually spends quite a lot of time on our antagonists. In actual fact, whilst I was watching this movie, I was thinking it actually spends, I don't know, I haven't timed it, but it seems like it spends more time on the antagonists than the protagonists. So I would say maybe with this film, maybe over something like Wrong Turn, the one thing that maybe is a little different is that you do get a much more of a characterization from our kind of family of killers, basically. We get a lot more characterization with them. And these guys are a little bit more kind of into society than maybe the ones from Wrong Turn. One of them has like a, you know, a gas station and things like this, and they appear to be, you know, not quite as kind of mutated as the ones from Wrong Turn, but nonetheless, they're still pretty brutal and obviously savage when it comes down to it. You know, we have some sort of interesting kind of family dynamics here. Our main one, Owen, is the kind of the leader and probably the one who is most in tune with the kind of the real world, so to speak. And we have his other brother Oswald, who is not quite with us. And there's a mutated guy as well, who you'll kind of see at the end, and maybe even more than that. So, and our 4 protagonists, I do say, I actually quite liked our protagonists here. Our main girl is quite a likeable and capable character, certainly without being a Mary Sue. In actual fact, she doesn't always get the upper hand all that much, and she fails just as much as she succeeds in this movie. I even quite liked, I won't say who it is, but there's maybe a character who gets the least amount of screen time in our kind of foursome of friends here. And even their character, I felt actually had quite a good character moment. And even despite the fact that the one who maybe has the least screen time, you can probably guess around why that is. I still felt their character was somewhat kind of likeable in a way. I also quite appreciated the 90s hairstyles with the curtains as one of the guys there, so that was quite fun. I actually quite like the ending of this as well. Now, the ending may be somewhat divisive, I would argue, because I feel some people may feel it was very abrupt. But it is abrupt, but I actually think, okay, that's probably fairly realistic about maybe what would happen and how things can change on a dime. Let's just say that. But I quite like the ending. What didn't I like about this movie? So, it is practically the same film as Wrong Turn. And you almost wonder why do a movie that is so similar to Wrong Turn when that has come out and obviously had many sequels and even a remake coming out, I believe, later on this year. So kind of why even do it? So there is that kind of question because it really doesn't offer anything particularly new outside of their antagonists are slightly more integrated in society than the ones in Wrong Turn. And that's maybe about it. The other thing that I would say bothered me a little bit with this film is there is some incredibly dumb decisions made by pretty much all the characters on this one, antagonists and protagonists. Not once but twice do our protagonists find either a house or someone and assume that they're not at all connected to what's going on. Whilst if this was the sort of thing that you see in the movie was going on, you would not want to talk to anyone from the area at all. You would just get out. It's just like, come on, this is, you can probably assume that this place or this person may well have something, if not even directly to do with it, but maybe even know about it. It's just like, oh, come on. It's ridiculously silly at times, this movie, in regards to some of the kind of logic, just to kind of get the plot to go in a certain place. And even kind of our antagonists, Owen, who is the kind of the main one, seems to leave himself open to his prisoners escaping and things like that. Okay, you can say he's obviously been raised in the outback somewhere in the rural kind of woods, and maybe he hasn't had the best education, but the dumbness goes all round in this movie. But to be honest with you, I actually found this movie pretty entertaining. I think if you maybe our antagonist, they just kind of look like regular hillbillies, maybe apart from one of them. And I would have liked to have seen that one a little bit more, because out of everyone, he certainly gets the shortest screen time, and we know nothing about them. So maybe I would have liked that bit had a bit fleshed out as well. But overall, despite its shortcomings and unoriginality, this is still a well-made and enjoyable horror film if you like that kind of like mountain man, kind of hillbilly sort of deliverance kind of style movie. Like I said, it's pretty much the same as Wrong Turn, but I do think if you watched Wrong Turn, you'd probably like this. Now, I've seen all of the sequels of Wrong Turn, and I didn't really like any of them, to be honest with you. And I will actually say this is, in my opinion at least, the original Wrong Turn is still the better movie, but this is probably better than any of the sequels, in my opinion. I didn't like the sequels, to be honest, on that one. The remake, maybe you haven't seen that yet. But anyway, I would give this a 6 out of 10, an above average score. Not original. You've seen it plenty of times, but it's still fun to kind of revisit this kind of style of movie. What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.